Time Cat and the Generic 3. Steel rang against steel. The human warrior braced behind his shield as the ogre's club crashed down, splintering wood and rattling bone. Mud clung to his boots. Smoke stung his eyes. He raised his sword for what he knew would be the final swing. Bam! The battlefield vanished. He stumbled forward in silence, nearly falling as his boots hit soft grass instead of churned earth. The air was clean. The sky impossibly blue. Rolling green hills stretched in every direction, and a narrow brick road wound toward a distant town. A small pink cat floated above him, staring down with the mild annoyance of someone whose package had arrived early. Before he could speak, bam! A hulking green orc appeared mid-swing, roaring at an enemy who no longer existed. His momentum carried him forward, and he spun in confusion, fists raised. Damn! A dwarf materialized next, landing flat on his backside with a grunt, axe clattering beside him. He blinked at the sky, and then at the cat, and then at the human, as if trying to decide which part of this was most offensive. Bam! Last came the elf, tall, elegant, golden hair flowing as if she'd been in the middle of a dramatic leap. She landed lightly, bow half drawn, eyes wide and scanning the horizon for threats. The four stared at each other. Then they looked up at the floating pink cat. The cat sighed, as though the entire process had been unbearably tedious. The cat puffed out his tiny chest. "Hey! I'm a cat," he said, quite proudly. He drifted into a lazy figure eight, rolling onto his back mid-loop as if performing for an audience that didn't exist. He inspected his claws with cosmic boredom. "I exist outside of time as you perceive it. I can travel through and manipulate time, however I please." He stopped spinning and fixed all four of them with a smug, glowing stare. "I'm a frickin' god to you." Relaxing his posture, he began to float again. "People call me Kate. It's no big deal." He hovered expectantly. "Now you talk." The human inhaled to speak. Kate cut him off instantly. "I don't really care." Kate floated on his back again, gently drifting through the air. "I brought you together because, well, I'm bored, and I thought this would be fun." The adventurers exchanged confused looks. "I know you have your own goals and dreams and tragic backstories and all, but none of that matters. I need your help." He paused, reconsidering. "Well, need is a strong word. You're going to help me." He pointed a tiny paw down the brick road. "At the end of this road is a town of sentient cow people called..." He paused for dramatic effect. "Cow people." Another round of confused glances. "They make, like, the best creme. At least they did." Kate turned toward the distant town. For a moment there was almost a hint of sadness in his eyes. "But the supply has run dry." He looked back at them, patting his belly. "And Papa needs his fix." The orc stepped forward, fists clenched. "You can't just teleport us here against our will because you want..." Kate clapped his paws. The orc vanished without a trace. Kate didn't even look at the empty space. "Anyway," he continued, "you idiots are going to go up there and get me some creme. And if you fix whatever's causing the shortage, I'll help you with your little quests or destinies or whatever." He smiled sweetly. "If you don't, I'll erase you from time itself." He gave a tiny, cheerful wave. "Thanks in advance." He flashed a smug, knowing little grin. The kind that said he fully expected compliance and that the alternative would be unpleasant. With a soft puff of pink smoke, Kate vanished. The generic three looked at each other for a moment, shrugged, and started down the brick road in search of the best creme. They didn't make it far. Three men stumbled out from behind a bush, the kind of men who looked like they'd decided to become bandits roughly 10 minutes ago. "Hey," the first one said, puffing out his chest. "I'm Jimmy. Jimmy Slaps." He said it like the trio should recognize the name. A beat. "Of the Jimmy Slaps gang," he added, with even more confidence, as if that would help. The generic three stared at him, blank. Jimmy blinked, thrown off for half a second, then recovered. "Well, if you want to get by, you have to pay the toll of 1 gold. He turned to the other two bandits. That's pretty reasonable, right?" They nodded enthusiastically, almost relieved he'd said it first. Jimmy turned back to the trio, emboldened. "So, pay up and nobody gets hurt." Without hesitation, the dwarf let out a blood-curdling battle cry. "I will pay you with the steel of my axe!" Before anyone could react, he charged forward and cleaved Jimmy cleanly in half. Jimmy Slaps died instantly, never finishing his first day as a bandit. The dwarf raised his axe again, eyes wild with bloodlust. The human grabbed his shoulder. "Whoa, buddy. Calm down. That was crazy." One of the remaining bandits dropped to his knees beside Jimmy's body, tears streaming down his face. "He had a wife and kids. He had a family." He gently closed Jimmy's eyes with trembling fingers. "It was only 1 gold, you monsters!" The dwarf lowered his axe, suddenly looking a little embarrassed by his own enthusiasm. The elf stepped forward, hands raised in a gentle, apologetic gesture. "We are so sorry. Is there anything we can do?" She glanced at what remained of Jimmy Slaps. "To help." The second bandit walked over and placed a hand on the grieving bandit's back. He didn't look angry, just tired. "I think you've done enough." And with that, the generic three continued on their pointless journey. They walked in uneasy silence for a while, the brick road stretching ahead of them toward the distant cow-people town. A gentle breeze rustled the grass on either side, as if nature itself was trying very hard to pretend it hadn't just witnessed a dwarf bisect a man named Jimmy Slaps. Birds chirped with unsettling optimism. Even the sky felt too cheerful. The elf finally broke the silence. "Do you think Jimmy will be okay?" The human didn't stop walking, but his soul did. "No, Jimmy's dead." The elf looked out with a long, blank stare. "Oh, no." The dwarf shrugged, hefting his axe over one shoulder. I've come back from worse." The human stared at him, exhaustion settling into his bones. "You've come back from getting cut in half." The elf gasped softly. "That's really impressive." The human exhaled a long, weary sigh. The sound of a man slowly accepting that the universe had handed him the 2 worst travel companions imaginable. Ahead of them lay the distant cow-people town, its rooftops barely visible on the horizon. The journey suddenly felt much longer. As they approached the town, they saw a crowd of cow-people milling around this market square. Some were buying hay, others chatting idly about cowbells and udders. It all felt strangely domestic for a town of sentient cattle. In the center of the square stood a tall hand-painted sign that read "Cream sold here." Behind it was a creature so strange the generic three slowed to a hesitant crawl. It had the head of a hippo and the body of a snail, a long, sagging slug torso dragging across the cobblestones. Its head was far too big for its body, its flat teeth slightly exposed, and its wide, bloodshot eyes stared outward with the exhausted confusion of someone who had been lost for years and simply accepted it. The creature blinked at them, looking confused in a way that felt permanent. "Hi," the creature said. "I'm Mark with a C. I don't know what I am." An awkward silence followed. Mark slow blinked at them, his huge, bloodshot eyes drifting slightly apart. The human opened his mouth to speak, but Mark cut him off. "How can I help you? I'd sell you some cream, but I've completely run out. Nobody knows what's happening at the cream factory, especially not me. I don't even know what I am." Another long, painful silence. The elf tried. Well, Mark jumped in again. We're all very confused. You might try talking to the Council of 12. They know all. He blinked slowly. The trio stared at him. No one dared to start speaking. Mark continued to stare back, blinking at a pace that suggested he was buffering. The dwarf finally ventured. Okay, Mark cut him off instantly. I'm sure they already know you're here. They know everything, I'm pretty sure, except for what I am. Nobody knows that, not even me, and I am me. He paused again, eyes drifting toward some distant cosmic void only he could see. The generic three looked around, desperate for an exit. The human leaned in toward the group. Look, that's the council building. Let's get out of here. The trio hurried into the council building, leaving Mark behind. Though Mark didn't seem to notice or mind. The chamber opened into a circular council hall where 12 cow people lounged in towering chairs around the rim. They stared down at the empty floor with the self-appointed dignity of creatures who believed height automatically equaled authority. The head council cow in the center leaned forward, letting out a deep, resonant You are here for the crim, are you not? The dwarf's eyes widened. You really do know all. The human shot him a look of pure annoyance. The head council cow continued, unfazed. Everyone is here for the crim. We know this. We know all. The other 11 nodded in solemn agreement, as if this were profound wisdom rather than the most obvious statement imaginable. One of the council cows spoke up. Well, except for Bessie, she doesn't know what Mark is, but we do. We're not telling him, though. Bessie snorted. I do know what he is. I'm the only one who knows, and I'm not telling him either. The trio exchanged a look. Now they were confused. The head council cow cleared his throat with a deep, authoritative We all know and don't know what he is. This has been settled. All 12 council members let out a resonant, unified The elf turned to the human and silently mouthed, What the fuck? The chamber fell silent. All 12 council cows stared down at the trio with the smug, superior expression of people who believe they are wise simply because they sit in tall chairs. The human cleared his throat. So about that cream. The head council cow cut him off. Yes. The cream. Bessie leaned forward. I know where you can get the cream, but I'm not telling. The head council cow snorted. Bessie, you don't know where to get the cream. Only I know where the cream can be had. I know, too, another member chimed in. No, you don't, the head cow replied. 'Tis only I. Bessie shot back. You don't know squat. Only I know. The head council cow puffed up proudly. I know squat as well, for squat is what I know best. Another council member nodded. Yes, Bessie, he knows squat, and so do I. I know squat too, another shouted. The dwarf stepped in. Okay. You all know squat. The head council cow beamed. That we do. And don't forget it. Another cow pulled out a cowbell and struck it once. A soft ding echoed through the chamber. What is going on? The human muttered. So, the head council cow said with an air of pompous superiority, you seek wisdom, eh? Look, we're just looking for some cream, the human interjected. Well, I invented cream, a cow said. I won't tell you how. No one will, the head council cow declared. A long silence hung in the air. You, tall thing, he pointed at the elf. What is your stance on the upcoming pasture expansion? Well, Incorrect! The council began to whisper among themselves. We have reached a verdict. The dwarf blinked. A verdict? The head council cow nodded. Yes. All in favor? In unison, the council let out a long... They sat back in their chairs, far too pleased with themselves. Well, what was the verdict? The cow asked. Bessie groaned. Oh, come on, Jeffrey, you never know the verdicts. Well, that's because we always just whisper. Do not blaspheme the sacred whisper of determination. That's perjury. The dwarf frowned. Perjury? You're a perjury. How dare you? That's 10 lashings with the whip of the ancients. Good. I like it. The entire council erupted into arguments, cows shouting over each other, one ringing the bell repeatedly. This went on for a long while. The generic 3 slowly backed out of the hall, inch by inch, hoping desperately not to draw the attention of the bickering council cows. Wait! The head council cow bellowed. The chamber fell silent. The trio froze. The head council cow stared at them with a hard, serious expression. You are dismissed. The trio stepped back into the street, bewildered. What the hell was that? The human said, confusion practically tangible in the air. I thought they seemed sweet, the elf offered. The dwarf and human stared at her in disbelief. Okay, the human said, shaking his head as if trying to get the stupid out of his ears. Let's just find the cream and get it to that psycho cat so we can get out of this fever dream. But where could it be? The Council of 12 said they knew, the dwarf said. They said they know all, so... The human sighed and buried his face in his hands. When he finally looked up, he glanced down the road and froze. A huge flashing neon sign blazed. Willard's Winkle's Cream Works. Oh, thank the gods. He started down the road immediately, trying to leave his idiot companions behind. Wait, where are you going? The elf called as she and the dwarf hurried after him. The human marched ahead, wondering if stupidity was contagious. He'd better be careful. He started thinking about philosophy, math, and anything else that might bolster his mind against whatever the hell was going on with this world. The cream factory was filled with enormous vats, each one brimming with untouched cream, perfectly ready to be bottled and sent to market. From a walkway above the vats came a loud, unhinged cackle. Rich, I tell you! Rich! A cow person paced back and forth, muttering to himself. The human, having reached his limit hours ago, shouted up, Hey! Are you Willard? What is going on here? There's so much cream in here. Why aren't you selling it? Willard froze and then laughed as if he'd just solved the universe. Why? He said, delighted with himself. Well, because if I sell it, then I won't make any money. The dwarf blinked. How's that then? Let me tell you, my simple-minded friends, Willard threw his arms wide. I was selling the normal amount at normal price, but then one day I bumped my head on the sink while getting out of the shower and it hit me. Yes! The sink hit you? The elf asked, concern creeping into her voice. No, not the sink! Willard snapped and then recomposed himself. It hit me that if I sold half as much cream at double the price, I'd make double the money. The human and the dwarf exchanged a long, empty stare. But then, Willard continued, if I sold a third as much and triple the price, I'd make even more money. And then I thought, what if I sold none of the cream? It would be invaluable. He burst into a diabolical laugh. So any minute now, the money will come rolling in. I'll be rich, I tell you. Rich! The human stepped forward. Yep, I think you have a concussion. Look, how about this? We take a bucket of cream, and then we go. You don't charge anything, and the money will be here later. Ha! Deal! Willard shouted. Fools, he muttered under his breath. The generic three hurried to fill a bucket with fresh cream, while Willard continued laughing and muttering to himself on the walkway above. Okay, the human shouted as he headed for the exit. The money will be here in no time. Yes, Willard called back. Of course it will. It always will. The human paused for a moment, staring at him, and then kept walking. The dwarf hurried after him. The elf lingered just long enough to turn to Willard and say, with genuine sympathy, I'm sorry about your sink. Then she left too. The lame trio hurried through the town, trying not to be spotted with the bucket of cream. Shouldn't we tell someone what's going on with the cream supply? The dwarf asked. No, we shouldn't, the human said, quickening his pace. They cut through the town market, keeping their heads down. From somewhere behind a stall, Mark with a C called out, Hey! I'm Mark with a C! The group did not wait for him to finish. They moved faster. They hurried back to the spot where they'd first appeared, hoping Kate would be pleased with what they'd brought, or at least too distracted to ask questions. The trio trudged back down the brick road, annoyed and carrying a sloshing bucket of cream. By the time they reached the clearing where Kate had first appeared, the sun was dipping low. A soft pop of pink smoke burst in front of them. Kate floated there, licking his paw. He was already holding a perfectly full jar of cream. He blinked at them. And you are? They stared at him. The human finally managed. We got the cream. Like you asked. Kate's eyes widened in sudden, delighted realization. Ha! Oh yeah, that! I already got some. He waved the jar casually. But, thanks, I guess. You can just set it down. He immediately bent in half and began licking his stomach, completely uninterested. The trio exchanged a long, hollow stare. Kate glanced up mid-groom. What? I'm done with you. You can go do, I don't know, whatever you people do. The elf cleared her throat. Are you going to return us to our worlds? Kate blinked. Oh, yeah, about that. You see, I don't really remember even bringing you here, so... He rotated lazily in the air, looking around as if the scenery might jog his memory. Anyway, ta-ta! With a cheerful flick of his paw, he vanished in a puff of pink smoke. The trio stood in silence for a long while. A gentle breeze drifted across the green plains, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers that were trying far too hard. Birds swooped overhead with the unrestrained joy of children discovering sunshine for the very first time. A squirrel chirped from a nearby branch, offering what felt like unsolicited emotional encouragement. The three of them sat there, soaking in the aggressively wholesome scenery, each lost in deep introspect, wondering where they'd gone wrong, what cosmic clerical error had dropped them here, and why the universe hated them personally. Hey! I'm Mark with a C! He came sprinting toward them from absolutely nowhere, arms flailing like he'd just learned what arms were. I yelled earlier, but you guys must not have heard me. I don't know what I am! The human's eyes twitched. Oh, what the Cut to black. The end.